So far I am about 3 chapters into Queenie, and I know it's also a Women's Prize long list book, and so is Red at Bone, so that's fun that I'm also getting to read some another prize lists offerings. My first impressions of Queenie are not great. It's not a bad book, but I really hope that something deepens in the narrative soon. It's all very surface right now. It's all very, I don't want to say it's high school or YA, but it has a surface layer that is descriptive. And Queenie is, she's a 25-year-old who is obsessed with her boyfriend and is hiding something, some horrible past, which is not being divulged yet. And the things that are happening to her are happening very much on a surface level. There's no inner dialogue so far. There's no revealing by the author to the reader what's really going on underneath. We're not being let in to Queenie at all. And for me, who, when I'm a character-based reader, that's hard. I don't, like, I'm obviously I'm going to read this whole book, and I'm giving it a fair shake, and I'm not going to abandon it or anything like that. But, I can't connect with, just a young woman whose boyfriend is rejecting her and who is a jerk anyway that she shouldn't even be with. And then having kind of reckless sex and perceiving that everyone else around her is better off, and then coming to the realization that they're not. Like, those are all pretty they're things that happen in life, but there's not much depth to them. So I'm hoping very much that we get some depth to the story. I'm very close to this. Hi everybody. I was debating on whether or not to do a midway check-in, because I'm past midway, and I just wanted to chat to you a little bit about my experience so far reading Queenie. So I started reading it, and I had kind of an immediate reaction, and it was a pretty negative reaction. And for all the reviews I've watched of this book so far and the opinions I've heard, I think if you've read this book, you know what that negative reaction is tied to. Queenie is not the easiest protagonist to like, and the reasons for that are that she is very promiscuous, and she's acting out and complaining a lot about her life, and she's very lost and mixed up, and she acts out with that. She has unprotected sex with multiple partners, and she's not even really enjoying it. She's not even really having fun. She's just having sex with random men. And for a long time reading the book, I was like, why did this get through to the second round? What is the appeal? And subsequently I watched a review of the book by Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I was intrigued by her review because she said something about, you get halfway through in this book and something changes, and it really it really made the book shine for her more than it had before. And so I had that in the back of my head as I started reading this again, about a week, was it a week ago? I think I started reading it again at the beginning of this week. Today's Friday, so I think I started reading it on Monday. And that transformation started happening for me. But what I'm really compelled about, or what I'm really interested in about this book, is that I've kind of been having these light bulb moments with it. And I don't know if I've ever been challenged as much by a book as this one. And I don't know if anyone else has had this interpretation of it that I'm coming to right now. I haven't watched all the reviews of this book by any means. But I kind of know that some I've watched have been really negative. People just didn't get the appeal. And others who have really identified with it. And so I've really come to understand something about myself through this book. And I don't know if Candice Carty-Williams was going for this when she wrote it, but it has hit me kind of like a ton of bricks, actually. And that is that I don't think I've ever judged a character as harshly as I judged Queenie at the beginning of this book. And I feel like the author did that on purpose. And the reason is that, especially women, when we are judging each other, because men are not judged for promiscuity the way women are. Let's be very honest there. They are not judged for promiscuity the way women are. And women have a standard for our sexual behavior that is very specific to specific codes, but I am coming from the perspective of a white, privileged woman living in Canada, growing up in the 80s and 90s, coming of age in the early 2000s. And I am not coming from Queenie's perspective. And the thing that's hard about this book is that you don't know her perspective at the beginning of the book. You get almost nothing. All she says is, I'm damaged. You can't do that because that upsets me. That I don't like people to touch me. That I can't go into big crowds. That I don't like to be... all these things. She has all these conditions. And at the beginning of the book, her boyfriend Tom and her are taking a break. And you get little flashback snippets of her relationship with Tom. And I mean, the whole time I'm just like, why do you care about this guy? He's a total jerk. His family is like, some of his family members are, outright racist towards you, and Tom doesn't defend you in any way. He thinks you're making a scene when you call out the racism. There's a lot of layers there happening, and you're like, why do you even like this guy? But the thing is, we're all different. We've all had different experiences, but I was boy crazy too in my early 20s, and I did let men treat me badly. I was never abused per se, but I certainly endured ridiculous behavior that I should have kicked to the curb much earlier than I did. And in some cases I didn't. I just let them break up with me. So, we've all been through that. And I think part of my judgment of the book at the beginning was that I didn't feel like reading it because I'd already done it and I felt dumb. When you feel dumb for those choices you make when you're in your early 20s and you're trying to figure out your life and trying and kind of obsessed with being in love with someone and finding your partner and finding that person that's going to make you happy, you put up with ridiculous behavior from whether you pursue men or women or whoever you pursue. You put up with ridiculous behavior at times because of your need to be loved. And that was what Queenie was doing. And I judged her for that harshly. But then when this shift happens in the middle of the book, And I will say, with all honesty, that if I was not reading this for the BookTube prize, I would probably have DNF'd this book, even though I don't DNF a lot of books. But I'm so grateful that I did not DNF it. And the reason for that is because I felt a kind of kick to my gut where I realized one night, you are being judgmental. I won't say it, but I want to say the B word. You are judging this woman who you don't know. You don't know her story. You don't know her life. You're judging her promiscuous behavior. You're judging her low self-esteem. You're judging her obsession with love and this man who don't deserve her. And you are deciding that she deserves her pain because she's not being strong enough. Okay? But then you get to the middle of the book and things start to unravel for her. And as things unravel, you have more of the pieces of the puzzle that are put together for you as to where this behavior has come from. And the other thing that I think is really important that I realized halfway through this book is that Carty-Williams is showing you how Black women are objectified in Western culture. And I did not understand that. I am not a Black woman. And so I've never experienced that level of objectification. And she kind of kept repeating it because I think, especially as a white reader, I didn't understand the extent to which Black women's bodies are objectified and are controlled by others until I read this book. Okay? People are constantly touching Queenie's hair because it's beautiful, because it's interesting, because it's different. Would you go up to someone and just touch their hair? I mean, you just don't do that, right? But to Queenie, people felt permission to do that to her. The men who wanted to sleep with her were completely objectifying her body, her curvy Black body, and they were deciding that they wanted to have sex with her because she was a sexual object to them. She wasn't a person with living, breathing feelings. She wasn't a person that they thought about taking to dinner. They just wanted to have sex with her. These are things that, as a white woman who grew up in a loving family with a lot of with plenty of money and support and a present father who instilled kind of values into how the way he treated my mother, instilled a certain amount of values in me of how I wanted to be treated by men. I already said that I wasn't always treated well, but I certainly was not treated the way Queenie was treated. Okay, so all those things go together and show you the way a person can be affected by not only her upbringing in society, but also the political aspect of being a Black person in the UK today. But she also references being a Black person in the United States. I think that this book has taught me a lot about reading between the lines and understanding my own bias, my own bias coming through in how I judge books based on the characters. And so I feel really grateful right now. I have not finished it. I have about 40 pages left. And I will do a general wrap up. But I just wanted to share those things because I know a lot of people didn't like this book. And obviously, enough people liked it in round 1 that they put it through to round 2. But this book has taught me a lot. And I'm very grateful for these lessons about myself and about society in general and how we pigeonhole people. And I know I watched an interview with Candice Carty-Williams talking about the themes in this book, and one of them was She was trying to get across to Black women that they don't always have to be strong, and that Queenie shows eventually her vulnerability, even though she's tried to build up this horrible shell and this thick exterior so that she can let all the hatred, all the racism, all of the people trying to objectify her bounce off of her. And then she felt like if she had sex with these men, that she could control their fetishizing her. And then she comes to see that is not empowering her. It's actually breaking her spirit. And yeah, so I'm just falling into a camp with this book that I'm able to see how, I have to say, I really think that Candice Carty-Williams did something remarkable with this. I don't even know if she did it on purpose, but she certainly showed me where my own bias lays in terms of promiscuity. And I think that everyone should check themselves around that. Granted, it may not be the most pleasant thing to read about, and I will give you that. It's not pleasant to read and listen to someone who is abusing themselves by allowing men to objectify them and have sex with them. It is not a fun thing to read, especially as a feminist reader. But when you own your own body and you're making choices, you sometimes make good ones and you sometimes make bad ones. And I have many friends who have been promiscuous, and I don't judge them for that. And so I was trying at this stage to not judge. I'm trying to stop judging Queenie, not judge her for these decisions. And the other theme in this book of female friendship is one that I also appreciate. And I think that even though the friendships don't look like my own friendships, they are still really interesting and deep, and kind of live and let live friendships. But also these women want to support Queenie and they want to help her, but they also want to let her kind of stand on her own 2 feet and figure it out, because you have to. I mean, you can't make these decisions for your friends. You just can't. So that's all I have to say about Queenie. So I just finished Queenie. I had less to read than I thought. And yeah, my feelings still stand. I don't think that the ending changed much about how I overall felt about the story. I think I still feel really grateful for reading it. I think that it has a point of view that is important, and I think that it's worth understanding what Queenie says, and that if you dig beneath the kind of outer crust of the story, you're gonna find a lot in there about race relations, about like different cultures, about women and how we treat each other, especially in regards to men and men's getting a man and treating a man, friendship, family, what being an immigrant family means, what being a first generation from an immigrant family means, all those things, all very, very relevant things. So yeah, I think it's a good book. Everybody. So I'm halfway through The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christi Lefteri. And I think out of all of the books that I've read, out of the other 5, this one is probably the most aligned with my reading style and my reading preferences. So this is the story of Nuri and Afra, who are living in Aleppo and living their lives. Afra is an artist, Nuri is a beekeeper. And Lefteri tells the story with a lot of beauty, with a lot of natural elements written in. So a lot of parts of what Nuri loves about beekeeping, his passion for it, his solace in it. And Afra, you can tell she's just this artistic spirit. And then while you learn that about them, you're also learning that they are refugees and they are trying to get to England. And that they get to England and are staying in a B&B that is basically there for refugees to stay in while they are claiming asylum. And so their story of how they got from Aleppo to England is being told at the same time. So you're moving back and forth in the timeline. I enjoy that type of a story. I think that the movement between the past and the future is quite fluid, quite well done. You also learn about Nuri's cousin Mustafa and his family, and he was the one who introduced Nuri to beekeeping. And so it's a really beautifully told story. I also really enjoy the structure. So what happens is you read a chapter, and then the chapter after that one ends without a final sentence, and the title of the next chapter is the last word in the final sentence of the previous chapter and the first word of the sentence of the preceding chapter. And I found that really lovely. It has kind of a poetic line that pulls you through, and what it's also doing is it is taking you, showing you that Nuri's experience, he's an unreliable narrator. He's telling you the story, but you're not really sure if he's remembering things correctly, if he where he is in his mind. So is he in the present tense or is he in the past tense? And I think it's probably safe to say that Nuri is experiencing some sort of post-traumatic stress or some sort of anxiety disorder that is kind of pulling him in and out of his own world inside his head. And so you're really experiencing that with him while the story is being told. And that's about all I have to say about it so far. I'm really enjoying it, and I would say that having read The Ungrateful Refugee by Dina Nieri before reading this is really, I mean, the two tie very well together. They have, The Ungrateful Refugee informs a lot of what is in here and gives you a kind of factual background to all the steps that Nuri is undergoing as he is trying to, go through all the red tape that it takes to become a landed immigrant in a new country. So yeah, really enjoying it, about halfway through, and I hope to finish it this weekend. Today is Thursday. I'm hoping to get it done by Sunday night, Monday morning, and that'll be all of my BookTube prize books read. Hi everybody. I finished The Beekeeper of Aleppo this morning, which is my final read for round 2 of the BookTube prize, and I just wanted to talk to you a bit about my thoughts on it. In terms of an enjoyable reading experience for this round, this book was the top for me. I thought that Christi Lefteri represented the story of refugees in such a thoughtful and sensitive way. The characters in this story are simple people who are looking for simple resolution to really complex issues, which is what most refugees are doing. They are going through incredible, horrible realities, and they are trying to find peace and safety. And I thought that all the characters that Lefteri brought to life in this story represented different aspects of different types of refugee experiences. And she just, for me, was able to give you just that little bit of beauty that you needed to carry you through really hard realities. The love that Nuri and his friend Mustafa have for their profession of beekeeping, the friendships and the deep love that the family connections gives everyone in this story. There's a lot of bittersweet difficulties in here, but the characters learn and they grow and they try to overcome horrible odds to try to hold on to the people that they were before the atrocities in Syria of the war. And I thought it was really well done. And you know, it brings you in, it shows you this world, and it leaves you with a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith that these stories of so much pain and suffering can have a little bit of a relief for people. So that ends this vlog, and I feel a little bit torn this time about this round, about how my judging is going to be, how my ranking is going to go. And that is because I feel like I might end up being a bit of an outlier in how I rank these books and in my experiences of these 6 books. And so I'm a little bit nervous because I feel like once I put my judge in there, once I put my rankings in and find out the results, that some of my favorite books might not make it through this time. Whereas last time, 2 out of my top 3 made it through. I'm a little worried that and this is just an assumption based on watching some of the reviews of these same books from round 1 and kind of getting this feeling that, you know, I mean, everybody has their own bias and their own interest in what they like to read about, but I think my bias and what I like to read about is probably very different from the average judge. So I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but I will be making another video talking about my rankings. And I make these videos prior to knowing the results. And I do that on purpose because I think that if I knew the results and then tried to evaluate my rankings based on those results, that it wouldn't be completely reflecting my personal experience of ranking these books and judging them and reading them. So I just want to keep that all together. And I may do a reaction video at the end of the cycle, once all the books have been ranked and once we get our number 1 in fiction and in nonfiction. And then I might go through each round and kind of talk about the books that I feel were wrongly left out, or that I feel were better than others, or whatever like that. So I will be back again soon with the rankings video. Thank you very much for watching these vlogs. I hope you enjoyed them. And this is a good book. You should read it.